Assalamu alaikum. I'd like to distinguish for you something that took me a while to even ask about when I was first in Egypt and trying to study and learn the Quran. And I kept on coming across the words qatala, mawata, in kuntum, qultiltum, fi sabilillah, omittum. You know, this these words, if you're not very well in Arabic, and you're just reading the translation, and then you're reading the Arabic, uh, only an American would pause at this, or some foreigner, because those Egyptian women that I was always with would obviously not even stop to ponder about this because they already know it because they were studying Arabic since they were tiny kids in KG or first grade. And I was always shy to admit that it was a problem for me because every time I'd come across it. So one time I was in the house of a very great sheikh. He was an Azhar professor of Hadith. He was blind. And I just got my coverage up. And I said, could you explain to me what this verse is all about? Because it seems to be straightforward. And I'll read it with you, and then you'll see if you think it's straightforward. And then I'll explain to you why I was in a quandary about these two words, qatala wa mawata. I always like to think of you as the way I was when I was starting out. And there's just so much emphasis on knowing the Arabic language. How are you going to know the Arabic language when you don't know the Arabic language? And you're coming from America and all you know is English and some other, I call it useless languages. I studied Latin, I studied Spanish, I studied French, I studied Italian just because I had to. But I wanted to learn Arabic because I knew there was something special about it. And I kept trying, and I'm still trying because it never ends. Arabic is, they call it the Bahr. That's what people call it. Arabic is a vast ocean. So it is. All right, let's begin now. We will begin with verse 156 to the end of the page, till 157. It's page 70, Imran. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم إن الذين تولوا منكم يوم التقى الجمعان إنما استزلهم الشيطان ببعد ما اكتسبوا ولقد عفى الله عنهم إن الله غفور رحيم يا أيها الذين آمنوا لا تكونوا كالذين كفروا وقالوا لإخوانهم إذا ضربتم في الأرض أو كانوا غزا لو كانوا عندنا ما ماتوا وما قتلوا ليجعل الله ذلك حسرة في قلوبهم والله يحيي ويميت والله بما تعملون بصير ولئن قلتم في سبيل الله أو متم لمغفرة من الله ورحمة خير مما يجمعون. Now, I went a little further than I probably should have. Backwards. I gave you an extra verse. I'll read it to you, the translation, but it was actually having to do with the Battle of Uhud. Indeed, those of you who turned back on the day the two armies met at Uhud, it was Satan who caused them to slip because of some blame they had earned. But Allah had already forgiven them. Indeed, Allah is forgiving and forbearing. So that is regarding something that happened. at the Ghazwat Uhud when they didn't obey Prophet Muhammad. But that's not really, it's the next verse and the end of the page that I'm concentrating on these words. O you who have believed, do not be like those who disbelieved and said about their brothers when they traveled through the land or went out to fight, if they had been with us, they would not have died or have been killed. So Allah makes that a regret within their hearts. In parentheses, it's misconception. And it is Allah who gives life and causes death. And Allah is seeing of what you do. And if you are killed in the cause of Allah or die, then forgiveness from Allah and mercy are better than whatever they accumulated in this world. And whether you die or are killed, unto Allah you will be gathered. So now, it's those words, die or are killed. And that's what, those words occur twice in the previous verses. So whether you die or are killed. And I'm thinking, well, isn't that kind of like the same thing? Qutiltum aw muttum? No. So the Sheikh said, the difference is, qutiltum means it's clear how they died. They were killed. They were in a battle. And someone killed them. Muttum is simply they passed away and we don't know how. Now, the Arabic is clear. It's two separate words. But in English, that concept isn't really brought forward. Even in deaths in a hospital, they'll always say, well, they died because of such and such. It's usually cancer now. If they can't think of something better, they'll just call everything cancer. But you see how Arabic is so expressive. That's why Arabic, really, I refer to Arabic language as a vice. It's got a vice grip on you. There's no escaping the meaning of the word. Now, commentators throughout the ages, they call them the mufassirun. They make tafsir. There's so many different interpretations, and that's why Islam has no pope. Islam doesn't have any boss. Everyone, if they can read Arabic, is free to analyze by the lights that Allah has put in their hearts. Now that's why, and I'm always trying to clarify the problems because this whole thing about Sunni, Shia, Sufi, etc. Sufis are often accused of not being that literate like Salafi and some Sunni shuyukh. They read and they read and they read and they read and they read, and that's what they do all day long. And they try to figure out the truth by reading books. Whereas the Sufi types will just make a lot of dhikr and they will ponder, and then they will say that Allah gives them the meanings and the light in their hearts. So often you will hear critics say, oh, those Salafi, all they do is read and they don't do anything. They don't actually come forward in the world and make a difference, like making projects of charity, etc. It's like, I'm even going to say this because I know you hear this, and I'd always like to make, in my new curriculum, I want to deal with the issues that you have to deal with, that you're hearing, and you have to study and understand. You may hear people say the Ikhwan Muslimin are the best because they have the knowledge, because most of them are highly educated, and they do things. They actually try to implement the religion on the ground, and therefore that puts them in a lot of trouble with rulers. Not all, but most. And then they will say the other types, the bookworms, they never do anything. All they do is read and argue with each other and try to have some one-upsmanship on who has the real tafsir. And if the truth be known, and this is why I want to tell you my new curriculum, the majority of all shuyukh and all mufassirin and whatever differ. They differ in their opinions. They back up their opinions with Quran, of course. Nobody can just say, oh, well, it's my opinion. Well, yes, some try to, but they're not regarded. What I ask you to do and what I have done in all these years, what I've tried to do and I'm still trying to do, is increase the ibadah and try to overwhelm the intellect with huge doses of dhikr, not like a Sufi, not in a circle doing group dhikr and maybe even doing a little beat with it, the who. No, never. However, I have to pause and I have to say to myself, enough now. How much are you doing of this? Aren't you supposed to get up and go outside and talk to people? Which, of course, that's the reason I'm here. Yes, you are supposed to do that, but I don't drive anymore. So I just have to take a stroll. And many times, especially in Walmart, I think they see me coming because I just use Walmart as my dawah center. And then I'll make an excuse like, because I'm short, so I often need help to reach something. And I'll say, oh, excuse me, could you help me get that up on the top shelf? And then it will be like an opening for dawah. Because when you speak to them in English and then they look at me like, what's that? Because they don't expect me to speak English. And then sometimes it turns into a really good discussion. What's up with you? What's up with those clothes? We're in Florida. It's sweltering hot all the time. And then you just tell them, well, Allah wants you to cover. And if you do what he likes, you won't feel the heat, which is true. You truly. I often have a little response wherein I tell them, I was much hotter in my bikini for 40 years of my life. 38 actually it is. I became Muslim at 38. Because the sun is burning your skin. And then I'll explain to them, don't you know that those Bedouin in the desert, they all wear big robes and turbans? And it's because you protect yourself from the heat that way. There's lots of little ways that you can, I don't want to say it's tricky, but you can more or less frame it depending on who you're talking to. Especially if it's a Black person. They're the ones that really get shocked when you say things like, you'll use like maybe a verse from a song, or it depends on how old the person is. But those over 40 are really the best because you can bring forward cultural stuff and they'll laugh. And then you can start to relate to them, even though the majority here are Southern Baptist and they are really almost immovable. That's why they're the largest congregation. The Baptists, they were the original Protestant number one. Well, there were other sects, Lutherans, Methodists, but the Baptists really, they took a hold here in this country. And the Southern Baptists, they say we're Satan. That's what they teach in the church. Yeah, believe it or not. So I'm in the epicenter of Southern Baptists right now in Florida. And yeah. And I move around a lot in different parts of Florida. And it's interesting to see the reactions when you go in my favorite store, which is Walmart. They just look at you askance. Some of them will give you dirty looks, and others will be just quizzical looks. I remember one time I thought they were Americans. They were from Russia, a beautiful family, a wife and 4 beautiful children. So I stopped to chat with them, and they were very interesting, very nice. I said, "Welcome to America." I don't know. All I want to do is spread the word. When the Christians spread the word, they say, "Spread the good word." Well, I have a better word. And a lot of what you think is the good word has been changed. And that's another issue. So much of the Dawah has turned into a war of whose book is better. And it's not right. To frame it in that way, I don't agree with it at all. And I know Ahmed Didat, Allah rest his soul, all of this one-upsmanship, whose book is better, whose book is more preserved, it doesn't really lead to anything. May he rest in peace. But I think to just come forward with the straight-up tawheed, the tawheed of uluhiyya, rububiyyah, wa asma'ullahi wa sifatihi, it cuts to the chase. It gets more accomplished if you can get that in straight away, rather than trying to clarify their distorted book, which is the Bible, which is distorted, but half of it isn't. If you really read the Bible, actually, you're supposed to read the Bible. But I suggest you study Quran first so that you'll know, right from wrong. And I have done that. So I'm happy to say that I'm not ghafila. It says in the Quran, don't be of the ghafilin and not study their books. You're supposed to study their books. And you can't do everything, though. So learn the Quran first before you try to tackle the errors that are in their books. Because most of the time, if you go forward on that tact of proving them wrong, they don't want to listen. So you have to get right in to the real reason why we know that Islam is the truth. It's Tawheed of the message and the messengers. So that's it for tonight. Can you see or tell that I'm falling asleep because it's really late and I lose my voice and I sound like a frog? So we'll say with that, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Free Palestine.